In this lesson, we'll explore how this theme was developed. Once you understand how all the components come together, you'll easily see why Bootstrap has become so popular with developers. In our HTML document, inside the head tag, we can see that the HTML code starts with defining the character set UTF-8 and the viewport. Remember that setting the viewport is important to keep the page responsive on all mobile devices. Underneath the title, we also have several links to external files that are needed for the layout. This includes the bootstrap.min.css style sheet, and also the custom freelancer.css style sheet, which is specific to this theme. The next block of code sets links to fonts that are used in this theme. So the font-awesome.min.css style sheet, and also certain fonts taken from the Google API. So there's two links to that. And so that's it for the inclusions. Most of this will look very familiar as we've worked with it quite a few times now. Inside the body tag, we start with the navigation elements. So this top navigation bar here that contains our buttons. The nav element uses the three classes we took a look at earlier: navbar, navbar default, and navbar fixed top. These ensure that the navbar stays fixed at the top even when the user scrolls down the page. The navigation elements are all contained within a container div. The first code block, starting with this div, is used to collapse the navbar for smaller screens. So remember, when we shrink the size of the browser, it collapses the navbar. So you can see that the navbar toggle class was used. The data toggle attribute is set to collapse. You can also see the different span classes that define each icon bar inside this little button here. The second block of code inside this div contains each one of these buttons, and they're structured inside an unordered list with a navbar right class, and that's why they'll stick to the right. Each individual button is contained within a list item, and each list item has an A attribute, a link attribute, set to a different value. The A attribute is set to the named anchor corresponding to the content that matches the button. So, the portfolio goes to the portfolio section, about goes to about, and so on. So that's why we see the number sign in front of the portfolio, about, and contact links. And you can see that the page is very well organized and well commented as well, which is common with Bootstrap themes. They also are separated in terms of sections. So for example, if we wanted to take out the entire navigation bar, we could just delete this entire block of code, and that would get rid of the navigation bar for us. So it's very easy to work with. I just undid that to bring the code back. Now next we have our header. And the header is contained within the header tags. And inside the header tags, we have a container. And inside the container, we have a row and a column. Okay, so it's a large column that spans 12 of the cells in our Bootstrap grid layout. Inside the column, we have this image, which has the image responsive class attached to it. That means the image will be responsive to any device, regardless of the screen size. We have the source of the image, and then we have a span with the start Bootstrap text. And if you're working with this theme, of course, you would change all this. You'd probably change your image source to something else. You change this text to the name of your website perhaps, and so on. And so that's it for the header. It's fairly simple. And then we go into the portfolio section. This entire section is contained within a container div. And so we have the portfolios. We have the section tag. Inside that we have the container. And I'd have to scroll down quite a bit just to see the closing div tag. You can see each one of these code blocks is contained inside the container. The first code block is a row that contains this portfolio text, and also this here, the line with the star in the middle. So that's this entire code block here. And inside another row, we have each of the code blocks for these 6 images here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now each one of these 6 code blocks are almost identical, just a few minor differences. Let's start with the first item here. We can see that they're contained within the column small 4 column size, and the link is set to portfolio modal 1 with a number sign in front of it. And the reason for that is because these links will open up a modal with additional content pertaining to that link. Each one of them does that. Now the code for the modal and the content inside the modal is a lot lower down on the page. So we'll get to that as we progress through the script. But just for now, know that each one of these images links to its own modal. And that's why we have the data toggle attribute set to modal as well. And then we have the icon. When you hover your mouse over, you'll see the magnifying glass. And so that's contained within this div with the class set to caption content. And then the image source for this cabin image. And then just an image responsive class to make sure that the images shrink if the browser window gets smaller. And on mobile devices, we can see that because of the grid layout, they do stack on top of one another. So they'll shrink to a certain point, and then they'll just stack on top of one another. So each one of these is almost identical. The only thing that changes is, of course, the image source, but also the link. Each link opens a separate modal. So the second button here opens portfolio modal 2, and then portfolio modal 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so that's it for that section.